Let's do it. Come on, I know it's cold, right? I know everyone knows what degree it is, what the wind chill factor is, and we know that the president's kind of like blocked off a few streets around here, made it a little challenging for us to get here this morning. But this is a very, very important and historic moment in my eyes, especially coming from someone that's been pushing STEM to our youth for a long, long time. Something like this that we're about to announce is really, really huge. So I want to start our morning again with that energy in mind, and I'm going to come back around. For all you that are watching online, stay with us. Good morning, Washington, D.C.
Good morning! Yeah!
Are you guys excited?
Yeah!
Yes, the next MacGyver is here. We have some phenomenal people that are representing quite a few organizations. We have people here from the White House. Where's Megan Smith? Yes, no, you stand up, say wave. The CTO is in the house. The CTO is here. Yes, she is here, so we'll be hearing some remarks from her. I'm playing all kind of roles this morning. We also have Adam Smith from USC. Could he please stand really quick? Ruth David from NAE, both here as well. This is important. These are the collaborators that brought all this together. A little bit later, we'll be hearing messages from both of them. A little bit later, we'll be hearing a panel with some of the most successful people in Hollywood that are in this room with you and online with you as well. I'd like all three of our panelists to stand up really quickly here. Anthony Zuiker, CSI, leads all the time, Mr. MacGyver, creator himself, and of course, Lori McCreary. She is the CEO of Revelations Entertainment, as well as the executive producer of Madame Secretary. So please give them a round of applause. She's here on Intel trying to find out other information for the show, trust me. My name is Mario Armstrong. I'm your host and moderator. Where's Randy? I need to say a special shout out. Yes, special shout out to Randy Atkins. Randy has, you can stand up, Sam. Randy has been working feverishly on this as well and has brought me in as well. And Jonathan, I want to say a special thanks to you for getting me here. Thank you so much for getting me here. My name is Mario Armstrong. I'm a technology, digital lifestyle expert and contributor for the Today Show, as well as NPR. I'm also an entrepreneur, and we are producing our own television programming as well. So it's an honor to be here. I'm super focused on STEM. We've done initiatives for youth for several years called Dream, Create, Go, which is all about identifying kids' passions and then tying those passions in with STEM. Having them not try to be focused on becoming a scientist or becoming an engineer, but more rather looking at what excites them naturally. What do they already gravitate to? And then find the science and technology within that to get them to be excited about sciences and technology. So when we're talking about the next MacGyver and this collaboration that we have here between education, organizations that see this as their mission, and Hollywood, this is the best opportunity, I honestly feel, to get more women and more people engaged in what science and engineering really means. Too often, the stereotypes control the messages, and too often, the media doesn't portray scientists and engineers in the light that we really should be portrayed in, and that the way that we do so many fascinating things. And so I think because it's being kind of put out there in a way that we haven't been able to really message it to younger minds in a way that's very creative, very spontaneous, and very exciting, this dynamic of creating a crowd-funded competition, crowdsourced competition to get more people in the general public, you online watching right now, all of you in this room, we want your ideas. The whole idea here is to create a community of people that are submitting ideas that will inspire a TV show that will be created with a female lead engineer. Can we just stop and absorb that for a second and applaud that idea? Seriously? Taking it from someone who has traveled to a lot of schools, been to a lot of organizations. I've done speaking in front of the Girl Scouts of America in California. I've been around quite a bit pushing and talking about science and technology. When I tell you that you can see young people's eyes light up when they see someone they can relate to, when they see someone they can have as a role model, when they see how technology and engineering relates and impacts our society in such a big way, everything from problem solving to solving health issues to political crisis, all types of things. Engineering and technology in our lives plays a role, even more so now than ever before. So when I see these young kids and they get excited about the images that I'm showing them on the screen, that's happening in a microcosm. That's happening in a lecture hall. That's happening in a small seminar, a small session. To have a TV show that could reach millions of people and impress upon millions of young minds out there what it's truly like to be an entrepreneur, what it's truly like to be a problem solver in today's culture, and the need for diversity in that thinking and in that mentality is critical. So I'm super excited for the talks that you'll hear today. I'm super excited for your questions. If you're joining us online, make sure you call a friend, email, tweet, text a friend. Let them know that we are online right now at nae.edu. We are broadcasting live for over the next hour, and we'll be taking your questions. So if you're watching online, please submit your questions from the site. We will get those in, and we'll get those answered. And you can also feel free to use the hashtag. And I'll be checking the hashtag to see if there's anything interesting we should bring up in the panel discussion. And that hashtag is #NextMacGyver. #NextMacGyver. Anybody here taking pictures or tweeting, make sure you use #NextMacGyver. We have to get that thing trending. And if nothing else happens, and you don't learn from Lori or Anthony or anyone on these panels, we have to get this thing trending so people can just be like, what in the heck is the next MacGyver? So, without further ado, I'd like to start to announce who's coming up first to speak and give you kind of a flow of the day. We'll hear first from Adam Smith, then we'll hear from Dr. Ruth David. We will then hear from Megan Smith, the White House CTO, and then we'll take a minute to take a look at our short video of the Next MacGyver promotional video that's out now. You'll be seeing that for the first time here. And then we'll jump right into our panel discussion and then open it up for questions as well. So let's begin first with Adam Smith. Adam?
Feeling Mario's passion today. My name is Adam Smith. I'm the Director of Communications for the USC Viterbi School of Engineering. I'm actually here on behalf of Dean Yanis Yortsos. Unfortunately, he had a funeral. One of the namesakes of our school just passed away, unfortunately. And so I'm here on his behalf. Hopefully, I will acquit him and the school well on this day. So I want to give a little context about what the heck the next MacGyver is and how we came to be here. This idea of a marriage between Hollywood and engineering has been around for a long time. You know, back in the 90s, Norma Augustine, former CEO of Lockheed Martin, proposed the idea of a TV show. Instead of LA Law, he said, how about LA Engineer? More recently, Andrew Viterbi, the co-founder of Qualcomm and the namesake of our USC Viterbi School, he lamented in Forbes saying, the first step in raising the profile of STEM professionals is getting the mainstream media on board. Is it ridiculous to think we can elevate the top minds in the scientific community to true celebrity status? So needless to say, when our school reached out first to the National Academy of Engineering, namely Randy Atkins, and to Lee Zlotoff, the creator of MacGyver, back in the summer of 2013, about this moonshot, right? A global competition to catalyze a new show about engineers, we couldn't have found more enthusiastic or committed partners. We're under no illusions here. Getting a TV show made is incredibly hard, but so is changing a culture. The good news is engineers are a pretty optimistic bunch. And it helps when you compare everything to reverse engineering the human brain or solving nuclear fusion. At the USC Viterbi School of Engineering, we believe very strongly in the critical importance of attracting the best minds, the most creative problem solvers from the entire country. Not just folks that look like me. I must tell you, we've been very proud of our record on this front. 37% of our entering freshmen are women, double the national average. I'm also proud to say that the female student percentage in computer science, a notoriously underrepresented field for women, is close to 28%. But I don't think anyone here is content. The most recent data on women in engineering has been less than encouraging. According to the National Student Clearinghouse, the percentage of U.S. women pursuing engineering bachelor degrees between 2004 and 2014 has not stayed stable, has decreased to just 19%. Next week, Change the Equation will present new data showing that despite numerous efforts to attract them, women's percentage in the engineering workforce has remained stagnant at about 24% over the past 13 years. You know, as actress Gina Davis frequently states, if she can see it, she can be it. You know, if she can see it, she can be it. The problem is she's largely not seeing it. You know, to give you a snapshot, a moment in time, in a 2012 study by Professor Stacy Smith and the Media Diversity and Social Change Initiative at the USC Annenberg School, of 275 primetime television shows, 0 of them had female engineers. Of the 129 top-grossing family films from 2006 to 2011, only 2 had female engineers. And we are not interested in blaming popular culture. I mean, people like popular culture. We're interested in enlisting popular culture. That's what Next MacGyver to me is all about, and that's why we're here today. Thank you, guys.
Next up, we'll hear from Dr. Ruth David from NAE. Dr. Ruth, come on up.
Oh, please don't call me Dr. Ruth.
No.
I have a question.
She's much shorter.
She is much shorter.
I was thrilled to be invited to represent the NAE today. I think this is a very exciting opportunity. First, I have to thank the United Engineering Foundation for their support of this effort. So kudos to them for seeing the potential of this project. I have to say, when I heard Norm's words, it resonates, because Norm has always had a way of finding a novel approach to an intractable problem. It's one of his hallmarks. So why is this important? NAE is a steward of the engineering profession. They have a vested interest in building the very best talent base for the profession, for the society, for our country, for the world. So it's clear their interest in this. Adam cited statistics, demonstrates the needle isn't moving much, all a problem. Why is that happening? We see the benefits. The benefits are real and tangible in recruiting more females into the engineering profession. So what do we have to do differently? Randy asked me to relay a bit of a personal story. It's strange, but I didn't intend to be an engineer. I grew up on a farm in Kansas. When I started college, I was a math major. I didn't know what engineers did. I was not interested. I'd never heard of that as a possibility. I got bored with math. And I was fortunate. I had a physics professor who hooked me up with a recruiter from Wichita State University who came down, talked to me, offered me a scholarship and a part-time job, which was important, if I would go into majoring in electrical engineering. Kind of a no-brainer. I've never looked back. I fell in love with the discipline, the applied problem solving, the opportunity to create things that hadn't before existed, the opportunity to build things used by others. It's a wonderful profession. It's exciting, it's rewarding.
Okay.
Some years ago, I saw, one of those inevitable lists of you might be an engineer if, filled with all of the typical engineering stereotypes. But one of the lines on that was, you might be an engineer if your favorite character in the James Bond movies is Q. That resonates. I was Q. For 3 years, I was head of science and technology at the Central Intelligence Agency. One of the most exciting 3 years of my career. It was fascinating. It was rewarding. It was important. It felt like we were really making a difference. I'm lucky, very lucky. Engineering found me, if you will. But we can't rely on chance. So how do we inspire young females to go into the engineering profession? What must we do differently? That's really the reason I'm so excited about this project. But again, you'll have to forgive me. I think we have a bit of a lexicon problem here. An impedance mismatch in terms of, I'm an engineer after all, an impedance mismatch in how we describe our profession. Other professions have bumper stickers. Doctors save lives. Cop put away the bad guys. What's our bumper sticker? What's our bumper sticker? What's the core message that will motivate young females to take this up as a profession? Let me offer a thought. It's actually a quote from Theodore von Karman, who was a recipient of the National Medal of Science in 1962. His words have been paraphrased in various ways, but one of the things he said was, scientists study the world as it is. Engineers create the world that has never been. Engineers create the world that has never been. How can that not be inspiring? Does that translate to modern media, to entertainment? I don't know. But I think something that is a core message that captures the imagination of males and females alike is going to be an important part of this project. It's always dangerous to speak for a population, especially when I'm probably several generations removed. But I believe today's youth really want to make a difference. They care about that. They need to see that opportunity in the engineering profession. It's really clear to me why NAE wants to attract more females into this profession. The value proposition is evident. We need their talents. We need their perspectives to be successful, to thrive as a profession. So I'm really excited about the potential of this project to help make it clear to the young females the value proposition from their perspective, why it's good for them. After all, who among us wants to live in a world designed primarily by males?
Next, it's a phenomenal honor to introduce to you the world's first female Chief Technology Officer. And Megan Smith is not just the CTO. Her background is really interesting, too, when you start reading. You start finding out that at MIT, she designed, built, and raced, along with some other students, a solar car that raced 2,000 miles across the Australian outback. That in of itself is like an episode. Like, I can just see that as an episode and all the things that happen along the way. But she also has a background working for Google and doing the Google X, being a former VP at the Google X, among many other things. So without further ado, the first female. This is crazy that I'm here getting a chance as a tech nut that I am and an entrepreneur and someone that really can gravitate to the importance of having someone so super qualified and be a woman that's also hands-on, dirty, knows what tech really means. Not like policy stuff, like I can do that, I'm smart. But like I can actually build things. I don't know if I can create a solar car with MIT students. I never went to MIT, but she can. So without further ado, I'm super honored to invite up the world's first CTO, US first CTO, Megan Smith. Thank you so much.
It's so great to be here. I have a couple images that I'm going to show you since we're talking about images on screen. So I wanted to share some. But you know, there are many stories there, including the third motor that we went through because the road was so hot, many things like that. I tell my boys that MIT is the Hogwarts of America. So, you know, really these powers, these engineering powers, as well as storytelling powers, these are magical powers. You know, you can really impact people if you can communicate, if you can make, if you can discover. And so helping our kids kind of have all the tools that they might choose is an amazing thing that we can bring to kids. And for some reason, you know, we just are opting some of our kids out of this stuff. I found this book. I haven't read it yet, so I'm not going to vouch fully for it. But it's 9 ways we're screwing up our girls and how we could stop. So as I flipped through it, and chapter 6 is, way 6, letting media shape our girls. So that's interesting. The average North American girl watches 5,000 hours of television, include 80,000 ads before she starts kindergarten. It's from Media Awareness Network. So just, there's a lot here. I think we're in the roots, not the symptoms of this problem if we start to address this. So I'll just share one more story, which is I come from a long line of engineers, so it's exciting to be at the National Academy of Engineering. My grandfather did a lot of the Indiana highways and then was at US Steel. And when I decided to go to engineering school, he said to my mom, why would she want to do that? Really? You know, so you seem to like it. I think that it was beyond his imagination that his granddaughter was going to go do engineering. My brother is an engineer at IBM, my uncle, others, so he could see that. What's exciting is we can get past that. My grandfather was so proud of me when I graduated. He'd be like, you know, I have a granddaughter. She's an engineer. You know, so you can move there, and we can get there. This is an image from an amazing film that came out this year. Who's here seen The Imitation Game? What I love about this film is that they got it right. Like, Alan Turing is real. Joan Clark is real. These people were at Bletchley Park. Bletchley Park is the amazing place where the British teams cracked the Enigma codes based on some work from the Poles and others beforehand. And really, they're credited with saving 11 million lives and shortening the war, World War II by 2 years by coding and listening. What's important is that really were a lot of women on site. In fact, of the 10,000 people at Bletchley Park, 8,000 were women. The film is good with Joan, although it does show all the other women in clerk positions. That's untrue. I met a woman who was there as a 5-year-old, and she told me that her mom, they were right next to Dilly Knox's team. Dilly Knox is the amazing math leader there. And her mom was always saying to her and her brothers, and shh, the girls are working. You know, so there were lots of girls, lots of women, mathematicians, many in their early 20s. So this is some of them working on the Colossus. We, as humanity, invented computers during the war because of the great need for computation. That happened in the UK. One of the things that's a little bit sad about this is that despite the fact that Kate, the Duchess of Cambridge, her grandmother was here as a codebreaker, it's still 25-to-1 boy visitors to girl visitors to this museum, despite the extraordinary heritage of women. So really got to get these stories out. And we got to figure out also, not just showing the device, but who did it, and really the stories of the people, what it really means to be an engineer. It's fun, it's exciting, it's deeply collaborative. People have this idea you sit in front of a computer alone. That's now how this works. This is Katherine Johnson. She's the American, she's now a 96, 97-year-old African-American woman who lives in Maryland. She's the American who calculated the trajectories of Alan Shepard. She calculated John Glenn, who wouldn't fly unless Katherine checked the math of the computers, and she calculated the Apollo mission. There's a fabulous take on the Maker series, makers.com, of her watching Neil Armstrong pushing to come off the moon, and she's like, I hope we got it right. I was hoping, and I hope I had it right too. You know? You know, these are real stories. I don't think we saw in the Apollo movies any African-American women on the team. I didn't see any. You know, and here she is. She's real. So we got to take our history back. This is the, I don't know if you noticed, there's women in this photo. A friend of mine saw this. She lives here in Virginia. She's like, who are these people? People told her they were refrigerator ladies just standing in front of the computer. She caught the story. She found these women. They're the first digital programmers in the United States. 6 women. This is a league of their own with computers. They were upstairs from Eckert and Mockley, the amazing people who designed the ENIAC, our first digital computer in America during the war. And they figured out how to program and calculate this based on wiring diagrams. Just amazing story. I can't wait for this movie. Please make it. But there's lots of people like this. You know, so here's some of the folks I've talked about. Ada Lovelace, Lord Byron's poet, math daughter. What a great Victorian film we could make about her and her collaboration. Grace Hopper. Grace was kind of annoyed with writing in machine code, thought of the idea of a translator or a compiler for machine language, invented the idea of languages for computers. Rear Admiral in the Navy, incredible, you know, Edison-level American out there. Hedy Lamarr, you know, thank you, Hedy, for the way our cell phones work. She was also a Hollywood actress. Many people don't know that there was a parallel group of astronauts during Mercury and all the way throughout of women. They often had to self-fund, and they weren't included. But the Mercury 13, and a lot of the women astronauts talk about them. So they're an incredible group to know about. I got to talk with the group that was working on the show Astronaut Wives and said, hey, can you write in some of these real people who existed? You know, so how do we take back the history so we know that the people who've been left out of history have actually always been part and at elite level? Another example just to kind of give is just the inspiration that many of our astronauts talk about Nichelle Nichols, you know, on the Star Trek floor. And there's a moment which Nichelle talks about. She was sitting at a dinner and someone tapped her on the shoulder. And they said, Nichelle, there's someone who'd like to meet you. She stood up and there was Martin Luther King Jr. And he was talking with her and she was saying, yeah, they're cutting my lines. I'm thinking of leaving. He's like, you can't leave. You know, he's like, you're doing more than all of my speeches as you beam into that American living room on the team, on the team. So just her image there has been always talked about by the astronauts. I don't know if you guys have seen, this is the original Macintosh team. These are the photos of the historic record from Rolling Stone. You can see the group, Andy Hertzfeld, Bill Atkinson, Burl Smith. This is Susan Kerr. She is all the graphics you saw. She was an art friend of Andy. She's really, her design influence on modern computing is extraordinary. Over here in this picture, you see Joanna Hoffman, a physics grad from MIT, who was the product manager and marketing lead for the Macintosh. She and Steve used to spar. She'd originally born in Russia. They had amazing conversations about what this machine should be and not be. So in the pyramid, there's 7 men and 4 women. In the movie Jobs, every man on screen has a speaking role in the scene about the Mac. Every woman on the picture is not in the cast. Why is that? Why do we lose our history all the time? We have to not do that. So I think part of it is, we're doing that with Silicon Valley, is that we don't have as many women in the writing crew, sort of looking at the stacks. We are often doing Bechdel test, which is where we write women, but the women, the Bechdel test is if there's a movie that has more than 2 women, they have a conversation with each other that's not about a man. Many movies cannot pass that test. So we've got to get there. Gina, we talked a little about amazing work that she did with Dr. Stacy Smith at USC. USC is leading the way in this area, doing the work. Of every 4 characters in a children's show, 1 of them is often a woman or a girl, and the rest are boys. One of the great things that USC is doing is they've got the computer science team in building tools and seeing if we can do things like tag the voices and measure ourselves. What's the ratio of speaking time in the scripts? Is it 8-to-1, 7-to-1? How do we get more balance in doing that? The good news is we're starting to see a lot more progress with women and grossing of films. This is a new Amazon show, which is called Androids. It's about a little girl who works in a junkyard and makes all kinds of robots, and 2 kids discover it and come and help her out. So like the next MacGyver, these kinds of characters. So I'm always out. This is a crazy slide with lots of text. I'm always out looking for new people. And this is a work in progress where I just found this woman up here named Margaret Hamilton. Turns out that she was the lead for coding for the lunar lander. And so this set of stuff standing next to her is all of her code. It's a little bit taller than she is, that she wrote or caused or managed to code. She is credited in the Wikipedia page with inventing the word software engineering and coming up with asynchronous software. It's her code that as the lunar lander was coming down, apparently some switches were flipped the wrong way, and the landing computer was getting messages to abort the mission. She had written the software so it would ignore those sequences in this asynchronous way and instead stay on focus of the landing sequence. It caused the lunar lander to, of course, land, as we all experienced. For those who are alive at the time, I was a little tiny kid. And so that happened. Without her code, they would have aborted the mission and come home. That's an amazing thing. Yeah. She's not in the movie. We need her to be in the movie. And here's Grace. We've been collecting her stuff and making sure her story's there. But I'll end there. But I'm so excited that we're here. I'm so excited to have you guys. Also with Anthony, CSI, there's an amazing movement in forensic sciences, which is just the schools are spilling out with women who are coming to forensic science because they can see themselves, in the show. Same thing with LA Law early on with the lawyers. So really, I'm really thankful to all the folks here, the engineering, the storytellers, and the super techies getting together and telling these stories. I'm excited also that Netflix has picked up Magic School Bus. I don't know if you guys have seen that. Magic School Bus is such a great show. It was done with the National Science Foundation. What's special about that, it's not a classic science show teaching you science. It's a show where you watch children debug and learn and do science, and in the end you happen to learn science along the way, but you really learn how to practice at doing this thing, and it's aimed at 3rd graders. So I'm there, and I'm looking forward to hearing from others. Thank you.
One of the things in order for something to actually work and to actually happen is the ability to have people genuinely start at a place of honesty and authenticity about an idea. And what you're seeing here is a real collaboration that took several years to kind of come together. And I'm super hopeful that because of how this started and the power and the experience and the positions and the different people coming from different perspectives, shows everyone here in this room as well as all of you online that this is a real opportunity. This is a real deal offering. And it's a real chance for us, the public, to be able to be engaged in something that can have a huge impact to our society and to future generations as well. Like, I want my kid to be so excited about watching a show like this that he wants to tell other kids about watching it. Or, you know, other teenagers are so excited about watching it that enrollments in education are going up because now they have more role models that they can look forward to. And the people that are putting this together are people that are involved not only from the educational and academia aspects, but also actually knowing how to make great TV. But then also people, you'll find out in the panel, some of these folks on the TV side are also scientists and engineers themselves. So it's really the best grouping and collaboration that I've seen. So it was really awesome to hear CTO Megan Smith's words. And now what I'd like to do is turn your attention to a short promotional video while we transition to have our panel come on up. Our panelists will come up to, well, you know what, since we have to watch it here, we'll wait. We'll go ahead and watch now the promo for the first great TV show and the next MacGyver. Check this out. Little round of applause for that, yeah. All right, so without further ado, I'd like to bring up our panelists to the front right now so we can have a great discussion. I guess I'll sit, let's see, we have so many chairs. How about I sit right here? And you guys pick a seat. So joining us, as I mentioned earlier, I'll just give you a brief explanation of who's who. I was going to say, wait, yeah, what's the deal here? Wait a minute, Lee. I was like, wait.
You can't make a speech and then not sit up here. That's not fair.
No, it's true. It's not fair. So to my right, as you all know, just in case you're just joining us online, this is Megan Smith, the CTO of the U.S., the first female CTO. Can I get a high five on that? Yes. Yeah. Oh, wait, do it on the camera. Yeah. See, you gotta get used to this now. It's called like, yeah. See, it's like press moments. You gotta get used to like slowing it down so like these things get caught on camera. Yeah. Right. To your right, we have Lee Zlotoff. Lee is someone that I grew up not knowing, but knowing his show, love what he did for me in watching those shows in the 80s, man. Thank you so much for creating MacGyver, and so good to see you here joining us. He has over 100 hours of credits to his name, and he's also furthering STEM education by doing a lot with MacGyver curricula and some other interesting topics that we'll bring up as well. To his right, does Anthony Zuiker, anybody know CSI? Anybody ever watch? Any of them, you know, not just any of the CSIs. This is the guy. He's currently doing a new series called CSI Cyber. And I'm also really excited about something that he just did for students, for kids, Mysteryopolis. On the Nabi tablets, which is an amazing way to get kids not only into literacy and education, but also just a fun way to bring science and technology into a narrative. And so I thought that was really awesome. And his show has been known as, you know, the CSI effect, which did really create a huge jump in enrollments and interest in forensics. And so the whole hope is that we could mimic and repeat that same energy and that same passion for engineering as well. So thank you so much for being here, Anthony. And then to your right, my new friend, I'm calling her that just because I just met her and we had a conversation outside of here, and it really told me a lot about how she runs Revelations Entertainment. She's the CEO of Revelations and co-founder of Revelations Entertainment. Her name is Lori McCreary, and she said something to me. She's also the EP of Madame's secretary, but she said something to me about how, you know how you go to someone's website and you read their mission statement and they say great things on their website? Like, whose website doesn't say great stuff about them, right? Right, exactly. So you read it, right? And then you start looking at like the work that they've done, and it started touching me because I realized that, wait, she's actually really doing programming that she really genuinely cares about and is not just trying to do some commercial programming just to make money. That's very difficult being in the TV business. That's very difficult to make really great programming and to keep centered with that focus. And when she talked about Madame's secretary, it all started from the same premise that we have the next MacGyver. They wanted to also see more women, more people in public discourse and in public service, probably with a goal of seeing a female president, I would imagine. Like, it wouldn't be a bad thing if someone watched your show and said, because of that show, I decided to run for president and I became president. Like, that wouldn't be a bad piece of a check mark on your legacy, would it?
No, not bad.
It'd be pretty good. I mean, right, and you got the 15 million viewers, so I mean, you can be more excited.
We do.
Yes.
We do. I'm excited. No, we did start with the premise, which is how do we get more people excited about going into public service? I think people who work in Washington and work on policy and work out of the country, especially those in the diplomatic service, get so little screen time besides what's negative perhaps on television. And so we really wanted to do something that shone a light on that so that people would say, oh, I can do that. I want to be at the State Department. I'd like to work there. I didn't know there was a career there. So that's the exciting thing for us about that.
And I'm bringing these things up for all of these individuals because these are some of the intangibles that you don't know about what drives them and why I really do feel that USC, NAE, and everyone that's involved really thought through, like, how can we really make a good run at this, a great shot at this? So without further ado, I'd like to start first with you, Lee, because it is called The Next MacGyver. And so we do want to hear a little bit about just an overview, specifically from your perspective, about what this means to you and how the public should get engaged. What would you like them to do?
Sure. So the reason when Adam and I first discussed this that we landed on calling it The Next MacGyver is that if you call it, why don't you create a show about a female engineer who could change the world, nobody's going to know what you're talking about. But if you called it The Next MacGyver, who was clearly an iconic character that, you know, employed sort of physics and chemistry and, you know, engineering to solve problems essentially on a weekly basis, people would have some idea at least of what we were aiming for. So it is a international, global, open source competition. Anyone can submit an idea, with the exception of someone who is such a professional writer that they make more than $50,000 a year writing. If you're that good a writer, you don't need us. But we need everybody else to suggest ideas, and of those ideas, there will be 3 panels: an engineering panel, an entertainment panel, and an academic film school panel that will review all of the ideas that's submitted. From those ideas, we will choose 12. The deadline is April 17th, so you have 2 months now to go online, thenextmacgyver.com, look at the application, fill in what you think your idea is, and by April 17th, we will then take all of those ideas, all 3 panels will review them, and we will choose the 12 top ones. Those 12 top ones will then be encouraged to produce a longer version of their concept in some sort of treatment form, and then they will be invited to an event, we're hoping at the White House.
Okay, that sounds good.
Just saying, just saying.
It's a great platform.
But it could also end up at CAA. CAA is a sponsor and supporter of this, and Ivan is here from CAA because they're one of the top talent agencies and responsible for a lot of the television. I think they represent you, don't they, Anthony? Okay, there you go.
And us.
Point taken, okay? And of those 12, they will be both supported in developing a pitch. And then our Hollywood top 5 mentors and our judges will decide who the 5 winners are. Each of those winners will get $5,000 and then will be paired with one of those top Hollywood producers to mentor them through the script process, with the goal being that we end up with ideally 5 great scripts, 5 invested Hollywood producers who are excited about taking these to the networks or to Amazon or to Netflix or whoever else might be excited about putting on a show with an iconic female engineer character. And that's the contest.
Now this is exciting, and when you bring up, you want ideas, you get to a script, you get to treatment, you get to these, buzzwords of the industry. One thing I think about is maybe some people may start thinking, I don't know if I can write for that or if that's for me. And so, Anthony, I'd like to ask you a question, because if you dig a little bit in your background and do a little research on you, we find that you were driving a tram in Las Vegas. For those that don't know, they've ever been on a tram, you may have ridden one that Anthony was driving. and there was a moment, though, where you decided to watch a Discovery show. And you didn't go out and play basketball with your friends. You decided to go home and watch this TV show. And that changed everything from your perspective in terms of you wanting to write a show. I wonder if you could speak to how, being naive to the script writing process, you didn't come from the fabric of that industry is what I'm getting at. And I think a lot of people listening that aren't in the industry say, man, I have a great idea. What should I do next? How should I begin?
Well, I might not look like a rap fan, but I like rap. There's a group called EPMD, and there's a famous lyric that says, it's like a lotto, you got to be in it to win it. That's Hollywood. I mean, this initiative that we're pulling off is me, literally 18 years ago, where I'm driving a tram in Las Vegas for $8 an hour. I watch a little show called The New Detectives on Discovery Channel. It's a forensic docudrama. I could have walked outside and played basketball. Thankfully, I didn't. I watched the show. And from that particular episode was the inspiration for CSI, because they pulled a long blonde hair follicle out of a headrest in a crime, and then at the end of that hair was a tag cell or seed attached because the hair was yanked out in a struggle. And I quickly learned that the body was the perfect specimen for crime solving, and that's really how the idea and the germ of CSI was born. It was the first television script I've ever written, and I was 29 years old in CBS pitching Nita Tassler, who was drama development back then. Now she runs the whole thing. And from there, we cast and we shot and we got on the schedule, and it was the #1 show in the world for 5 years, and now we've done 4. Vegas, Miami, New York, and CSI Cyber, all from a tram driver who wrote one script and had one idea, turned into a whole franchise. That's how Hollywood can work. And that's how this can work also, by having that one idea, that one great iconic character that could really change the face of an industry. When I first did CSI, it was called Field Services. The real CSI was called Field Services. Now it's called CSI. They had 5 applications per year for CSIs, 5. Now they have 10,000 a year. Wow. And like you said, the CSI effect has had a tremendous effect globally around the world in terms of awareness in forensic science. And luckily, this is the perfect storm for this initiative, because the trend in Hollywood right now, the hot trend, is female leads in TV shows. And I develop nothing unless it has a female lead from this point on. It's really, really our commitment to TV and development.
Can we tap into really quickly, too, you were passionate about science, and you were passionate about certain things. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I think that there are many people that are watching that do have some passions, but maybe help them get a sense of a framework on how they could start thinking about submitting for this.
Well, when you grow up in Las Vegas for 40 years and your mother works from 6 o'clock till 4 in the morning and you're a latchkey kid, you're curious. So all I did was watch television shows. I watched Quincy, and I was very, very passionate about science and puzzles and games and how the world worked, and very heavily researched kid back in those days. And CSI is a very, very heavily researched show. And the passion for the body being the perfect specimen, when you kind of really look at it from a forensic point of view, it's pretty awesome. From serology to skin to hair to blood to bruising, All of those things are kind of designed to tell you what happened to the body when the body can't speak for itself. And that one-line premise. In CBS, we've had a successful franchise for one reason. CSI is a show where underdogs go into a crime scene, scrutinize the evidence, solve the crime on the worst day of a person's life, and put the bad guy behind bars. That is a recipe for success for the CBS audience that got 1 year younger. They're 51. That is a global message that works in CSI all around the world in every country but 6.
Wow, that's amazing. Now, Lori, you have a ton of credits to your name. Obviously, you worked with Morgan Freeman on creating Revelations, and you guys have pushed forward. I remember being at CES, I believe it was 2006, when you were pushing forward on a really amazing initiative of having to be able to watch movies at home when they come out at the same time. And I was just like, oh my God, these people are amazing. Who are these people? And I dig further and I find out you're a computer scientist. I find out that you were an entrepreneur when you were in college. And so you know what it takes from a female being in science and engineering, but also being entrepreneurial. And I feel like script writing and the creative process is a bit entrepreneurial. Can you share the difference between a good idea and a story? Because what I fear that you may receive are a bunch of ideas, and you may be looking for a little bit deeper than that, a story. And there's a difference there, right?
There is a difference between a good idea and a good story. Morgan has drummed into me, we've worked together for 20 years, drummed into me that ideas are a dime a dozen and a good story is gold. And you could maybe think of it like an idea is, I want to make a movie about Nelson Mandela. That's an idea. But what's the story? Our story was, we want to tell a movie about how this man united a country by using a white sport that most blacks hated, and it united South Africa. That was the story. You have to get into who these characters are. Why was it important for him to do this? Why did people not want him to do it? Madam Secretary, for example, the idea is, tell the story of a Secretary of State. But what's the real story? Well, she has a husband who's a religious studies professor. What better way to have conflict in a family where she's out in diplomatic world dealing with deep, deep issues of religious differences, and he's there either helping her or pushing back at her on the way we're dealing with it as a country. And so what you want to do is really expand the idea into something bigger. Think about who do you know? Think about who you have in your life. Think about what great people in your life and infuse the story with that. So it's not just the germ of an idea. So we want a great female engineer. Think about who she is, what's her backstory, what does she have to push against, what world does she live in? And Nina Tassler told me, think about something that you would want to watch for 100 hours. If you can answer all those questions, you'll probably rise to the top of the list for us.
Another thing that Nina always taught all of us is when you first meet a character, tell us why he or she is off-center when you first meet her. That's also a very good piece of advice. Therefore, you kind of come in with the conflict right away. Things are always a little when you first meet somebody, and give them a good star opening.
But you can see that the story doesn't have to be more than about 2 or 3 sentences long. The stories you just related, it took her less than 25 words to say, here's the character, here's the story. So you don't have to write pages and pages to tell a story necessarily. If in a few lines you can say, here's the character and here's the story, you have the beginning of what we need.
There's a very famous book that I bought when I first got in the business called Sid Field, The Art of Screenwriting. And the one thing I never forgot in that book, besides what characters do in private, which is you always forget as writers, the second thing was a one-liner for a movie, like Rain Man. What's the one-liner for the movie? And the one-liner that he wrote in there is, am I my brother's keeper? That's the story of Rain Man. One line. You kind of go from there. It's pretty cool. You can distill it down to a line. That's a good point.
The thing that's interesting to me from I'm a computer scientist, I wrote code for first part of my career. Storytelling is really similar to developing program applications. It's really similar. You come up with an idea, and then you have to figure out who wants to see the idea, or in software, who's going to use it, Why are they going to use it? And then you basically build your team and build the infrastructure to see that through. And so for me as a producer, it's very similar to being a software engineer, very similar to taking that kernel of an idea and having something come out on the market, whether it's the software market or the entertainment market. So I encourage all you engineers to start thinking like storytellers, because you're already doing it in your own world, and help us in the entertainment industry tell some great stories.
And that's part one. Part two will be when you get network nodes. We call that malware in code.
I really like that you brought that up, because as you guys have been talking and you're getting them to kind of break it down into how do you start making this thing, like you begin, crawl, walk, run, right? That engineering and storytelling have a lot of similarity. And just helping our the people in the world through this storytelling see how they can be part of these different worlds is really great, as well as participating, help us make this incredible show.
Can you take a step back into your childhood for just a second and travel with me? I want you to be thinking about maybe someone that's in high school. You were there in early stages of college, or maybe even a little bit sooner. What was the moment for you as a young woman? I'm hoping that your answer will reach other young women that can say, that's me. What was the moment for you when you started to really realize, I really want to be in science or be in technology or be in engineering? What were you doing at the time, and what was that light bulb breakthrough moment?
I think there are a couple things. I'd sort of call it one, but just in general, I grew up in a very entrepreneurial family. And so they were working on often things in our city. Like my parents were part of getting the bike routes in the 70s, or my dad founded the recycling center my mom was teaching. They were sort of very active locally, so I could see it wasn't science and tech, but it's sort of the role modeling of starting. How do you get started, and really broke it down to watch them do that and how things became bigger.
Right.
And so being able to see that was very helpful. Also, when I went to school was during the later 70s, when there was a lot of busing going on in the country, and Buffalo, where I grew up, had done these great magnet schools. And so the teachers I got to be taught with created our school. So there were these entrepreneur teachers who we got to watch make our school and create that. So that was really helpful. And so for anyone, just kind of step back and watch people make things. That's a good thing to do, and then be part of that. We had a wonderful thing in tech in our school that our teachers made science fair mandatory. And it's one of the things I hope for all of our kids, that we can make coding and science fair and actual hands-on. We would never expect a child, if we taught them to read, to not learn to write. But we've canceled a lot of we've canceled a lot of those classes. We've canceled shop, home ec, art, lab, and those are all the places where you express in STEM. You get to learn, so you're just learning the facts. That's really boring, unless you have a master teacher who sort of mixed it up, which many are in our country, and I hope that some of the president's programs like Connect Ed will help us hear them better and spread that gold. But it's one of the issues that we've caused through education, which I got to get over, which is that we sort of make kids afraid of science and math. You're in class. Everyone has had that experience where you don't know the answer, and instead of figuring out how to make every kid feel welcome, and that everyone, when we learn to write, we don't really write exactly well. Same thing with science and math. We got to start somewhere. Crawl, walk, run. And so getting the fear out of this, and that none of us know. And discovery, whether it's discovery of a character in script writing, or whether it's discovery of a new chemistry idea, or discovery of how to solve clean water problems, that all starts with sort of just feeling like, I don't know the answer, and that's okay. For me, in science fair, I worked on, it was during the energy crisis, so I did all my science fair projects on green energy. So a lot of solar and windmills, and for me, I think the key was, we didn't have the internet, so I would go down to the downtown library on the bus and get, the set of books that were there. But being able to experience doing something myself, and that confidence, and realizing that it could impact the world, was critically important to draw me. And I think kids need to know just how deeply impactful their work can be on solving problems, as we've been talking about.
Go ahead.
And I was a successful high school student, but I was also, for the most part, terrified of science and math. I mean, it was like, oh man, these formulas, I don't know what they relate to, I don't know what they're about, and I've got to memorize all this stuff, and physics. I was like, oh man, it was like, and then I went to college, an unusual college, which is actually just down the road here in Annapolis, Maryland, called St. John's College, which is not a religious school, but and they read and discuss the great books of the Western world for 4 years. And so you don't take a math class.
Right.
You start by reading Euclid, and then you work your way over 4 years up to, you know, Einstein. Okay, and you do the same in science. And so what I discovered was, oh, okay, math and science are just another way to try and describe how the world works.
Right.
You know, it's like, what is this really all about? And you can do that in art, you can do it in music, you can do it in math, you can do it in science, but they're all, in effect, the same thing, which is, what does it mean to be human? What is this world we find ourselves in? And how do we make sense of it? And when I understood that suddenly math and science were just another way to make sense of the world, they became enormously accessible and really exciting and interesting, because I went, oh, so I can describe the world by telling a story, or I can describe the world by trying to work on a formula. But they're really just two sides of the same coin.
I want to take some, we do have questions, and before we actually take some of your questions from the audience, I want to bring up both Adam and Ruth to both join our Q&A for this part as well. Thank you both for being there. I'm going to start first with, let's see, we have a question from Linda. Now, Linda's a bridge engineer. Thanks, Linda. Shout out to Linda. Are we looking for a specific type of engineer? I think that's a really good question. Are we looking for, is there something in our minds that we know would work well? You said...
This is a good point. This is the point. The one thing I learned from Stephen Cannell before he passed away was character over concept. So I would highly suggest that when you fill out the application, that there's a heavy emphasis on character. That would be a really, really good thing. In terms of concept, the one thing about engineering that was been discussed is it hasn't really been distilled down into what really is it. There's so many different facets of engineering. And I think when you submit your application for your pitch or your script or your you need to pick a track, pick a side, pick a specific discipline, because it's almost like doing a show of like CSI, but law enforcement. There's so many different things to do for law enforcement. I chose the track of CSI, and I highly suggest that those that participate pick a track of a discipline of engineering also.
But the short answer is no. There's no specific discipline that we're looking for in engineering. We want to be surprised.
Right.
We want to be amazed.
Yeah, we're open to computer scientists, systems engineers, mechanical engineers, electrical, astronautics. I mean, we're pretty wide open in terms of the ideas we're willing to
Person
accept.
could be a hybrid, right? I mean, really, it doesn't have to even be like, you don't have to put them in a box.
One of the best places to be at the bleeding edge of being a biomedical engineer and I'm a doctor, or what have you. So.
You think a little bit, yesterday some of the astronauts, there was a program sent up to the station, space station, and they 3D printed a tool, which is awesome. So you can think about being an astronaut and all the different kinds of things.
Totally.
And the team of astronauts that are up there, whether, as you said, sort of aeroastro, or like this bridge engineer, more civil engineering, they're doing more things that try to stay still, like buildings and bridges, or water. I'm a mechanical engineer. Things that move, sort of electrical engineers. I don't know which kind of
I'm an electrical engineer, but I would actually advocate systems engineering.
Systems,
That's a great deal.
Somebody that brings it all around and
Coding it
connects it,
together.
right? Yeah.
Someone pointed out to me that before each of these disciplines were invented, people were just polymaths across them. And so it's really okay. But I think the idea of leaning a little bit in certain ways, and also maybe this engineer has teammates who are really good at certain other things, the other characters.
I actually think that's critical, because very few of those disciplines exist in isolation.
Right.
I mean, they're all part of something else, and they're integrated, so.
And by the way, the character doesn't necessarily have to wear a name tag that says, I'm an engineer. I mean, MacGyver wasn't an engineer per se. He was sort of a secret agent, but the fact is, he embodied all those skill sets. He obviously had that knowledge base. And so, if the character is specifically an engineer, that's great and that's fine, but it isn't a requirement that the character be an engineer. It's a requirement that the character really reflect the kind of problem solving and engineering thinking that we're looking for.
Engineering must be her primary skill set, kind of the conceit of her superpower in a way.
And I also think about the world that this engineer lives in. Like, where are they? What do you see every week? Who are the people that are surrounding her? What's that world that people are going to want to tune into every week? Because that's really critical on a television show. It's not just about the one character. It's really about their world.
You can think a little like the Lara Croft character, you know, who
Tomb Raider,
draws from sort of anthropology and history, and then into kind of Bond-like things, but then very technical and very physical.
It could be like a female
agile.
Tony Stark, you know, he's a CEO, he's a mechanical engineer, you know, he's a superhero. I mean,
And you know, worlds are a really, really good place to start, because CSI has a handful of worlds in CSI in disciplines, but engineering has that 200x over CSI. So there's a huge net to be cast for engineering. You know, if I was to sit and do an engineering show, I'd be thinking of like biomimicry, DARPA. Those are awesome, awesome worlds to kind of sink your teeth into for a show.
That's a great idea too. Thinking, because you did this, Lee, when you were you were thinking of that world. How would this character operate in this world? What were the things that would happen to this character that would make it compelling? And how would they get out of these challenges and these the crises that they would bump against? I'm doing a scholarly no-no right now by I have a piece of gum, but I can't help to think of how many times MacGyver would grab for a stick of gum or that foil from the gum. I have a second question that I think a lot of what you all are also saying really points well to the second question that's come to us. And I want to start first with you, Lori, on this. How would you define, well, the question is, how would you define engineering? A lot of titles have the word engineering, but people really aren't engineers. Now, I know we answered a little bit of this, but I want to dig back to how you, is it fair to say, accidentally stumbled into engineering? A little bit of your path?
Well, yeah, a little. I accidentally stumbled. I was in theater and trying to decide what I was going to major in. I thought I was going to be a storyteller. I thought in theater, and I was the lighting designer. I grew up in a really small town, 36,000 people. So those of you in small towns in America, well, okay, maybe that's huge. That was small to me. But I grew up in a really small town, and most people worked in the factory, and so I didn't have a lot to look at and what to do. I thought I was going to tell stories in theater. And the lighting and soundboard broke opening night of a show that I was the lighting designer on. And it was computerized. It was one of the first, it was in the 80s, first computerized lighting boards. And I was really upset. My dad's a carpenter and he builds stuff. I was really upset. I couldn't open it up and figure it out. There wasn't like the typical things that I would find, you know, in house building or things that I knew about. And I thought, I need to know how this works. This is a computer. I got to figure it out. If I'm going to own a theater, I better figure out how it works. And so I stumbled into it, but it was really out of this desire to MacGyver something, to fix something so I could put the show on that night. As it was, I had to, you know, do it manually and figure out how to get the lights up. But I stumbled on it.
And I bring that up because I think a lot of people may not be, they're watching, and I think they can relate to not being a certain definition of an engineer. But here you were problem solving on the spot. And so what I'm trying to get our audience to think more of and more widely of is what it means to be a problem solver, maybe not so much an engineer. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think it's a really good point. There was a great piece by Malcolm Gladwell in The New Yorker about just the mentality of an engineer, like the way of breaking down and creatively solving a problem. So the story was in his book, David and Goliath, about I think it was a software engineer in San Francisco. He was an immigrant, and he was the coach of like a girls' middle school basketball team, right? Terrible basketball team. They always lost. And he sat down with the rules for a basketball game, right? Because he knew nothing about basketball. And he basically broke down like, what are the constraints? What are the variables? What is the problem I have to solve? The way an engineer would. The way I would not, but the way he did. And his team ended up going to the state championships. I mean, he created this incredible team. He basically tried to exploit, you know, how can we maximize our efficiency given the rules? And he was not a basketball coach or player. He never played the game before. But like he thought the way an engineer does. How can I solve this problem creatively in a way nobody else would think to do?
We're open for questions. I'm sorry, we're open for questions too because I want to make sure the panelists get everything in. But we do have questions. Microphones are on each side. So if you could, because we need to capture that audio so that they can hear that online as well. So please don't be shy. We might actually give away a little prize. I'm just kidding. But get to the mics. I said we.
So along the lines of engineering, One of the things that's going on right now that before the contest ends is the first robotics contest in the US. There's like tens of thousands of schools, high schools, that do robotics sort of like the basketball team, but they do sport robotics. And so I know that the DC regional, for example, is I think March 26th to 28th, but all around there's 73 regionals around the US. So I know this is a global competition, but for those who are here in the US and there's some other countries who do it, there's a chance to actually go visit some high school kids who probably for the first time, starting in January, have been part of building a robot and engineering a solution for whatever the contest is. Sometimes it's frisbees and basketballs.
Right.
So just, if you want to go kind of look for some characters, I know that Pittsburgh, for example, has the Girls of Steel, which is several girls, all girls teams. So all around the country, there's teams of kids doing this. And so if you look up First Robotics, you can go visit with those kids.
This is Dean Kamen's group?
Yeah, it's Dean Kamen. I mean, just amazing scaled
it's
engineering.
fantastic.
It actually goes K through 12, but the high school teams do this like it's like sports version. The littler kids do Legos.
It's a great reality program we're trying to get going.
Great.
It's great.
Great place to meet some characters.
Yeah.
So I only want to add one thing. Problem solving is absolutely core to what an engineer does, but sometimes engineers also solve problems that people don't know they have. And that creative aspect is also a piece of engineering. If you're thinking to the future, that's a part of what an engineer does as well.
Great point, great point. State your name and your question, please.
Hi, my name is Jamie Lennon, and my question is, we've talked a couple times about having an ensemble cast or a problem-solving team. If we wanted to invert that 3-to-1 ratio and have, out of maybe 6, 5 of the engineers be women, is that too crazy for TV?
Token man.
No.
Well, according to Anthony Zuiker, they're looking for female leads, so I would say probably not.
Sounds great.
I mean, the short answer is no. I mean, the more the merrier. I believe that, again, we are in the culture of female empowerment and the culture of great female characters. You see it all over television. How to Get Away with Murder, Viola Davis, CSI Cyber, Patricia Arquette,
Right.
The Good Wife, Juliana Margulies, very strong women, relatable women, iconic actresses. And it's a great trend because it's a great breath of fresh air, and it's a good movement to not have such gender bias. So we're in the kill zone to do it. So yes, more the merrier, in my opinion.
And yeah, go.
No, I was going to say the good and the bad news is there are a lot of women, 40, 50, 60-year-old range, who are not working in Hollywood right now, and it's a great place to develop material for them. So there's a plethora of people out there that you could cast in your
Absolutely.
I was thinking diversity. You could do age diversity, people from all kinds of backgrounds. I was very lucky to work with Malala Yousafzai for a long time, and her favorite subject is physics. So, think about maybe somebody came from Pakistan and they're on your team. Like there could be people from all different races, ages, groups who are part of that ensemble team, because the creativity and the solutions will just be better if you have diversity.
And Hollywood, I think, has never been more open to diversity than it is now, because the truth is our audience is global now. I mean, I think it's still the case that the second largest export of the United States is entertainment. Okay, and so it's not just those in the U.S. speaking to those in the U.S., it's those of us who are in the entertainment business now really speaking to the world. And so we have to be both sensitive and aware to the fact that there are lots of different cultures, lots of different countries, lots of different resources now that we both need to speak to, and that should be a resource for us in terms of characters, stories, and directions.
And not only gender diversity, but racial diversity too. Empire's doing amazingly well on the air for Fox. Right. And I'll tell you, the interesting narrative that Ms. Smith brought up was every one of these examples that she gave in her talk, like, I want to make all those movies.
I was taking notes. I was definitely taking notes.
It's so great to go. It's the perfect narrative. The women in the background, you don't care about, that control and fixed everything. That's the movie.
One of the things, I was lucky when I was at Google to be part of opening the offices across Africa. And I think some characters who have come from very resource-constrained environments, just the engineering and the incredible stuff that's going on across Africa. I think, in many ways, one of the greatest changes we'll see in the world will be as our African colleagues join us over the next decade in elite leadership in the world. And so thinking about those kinds of folks, people who are just like taking the little resources that might be available right around them and being part of solving things. Really exciting.
No, it's huge. I want to go to one more question. Before I do, I just want to ask this as well. As someone who pitches television programming, like we're in the middle of trying to like put our pitch together for a TV talk show, and what I'm finding is that, and I'm thinking this could be relevant to people that may be writing these stories, what I'm finding is that if we decide to do something online, that could very well have different elements than if we were deciding to do something for syndication or traditional TV. Does the format, you brought up Amazon earlier or Netflix, or it could go to syndication, it could go in a lot of different directions. Do they need to even worry about that at this point, or should they, you don't want to see ideas about format right now?
Here's the great thing about networks. They know it when they see it, okay? So, you know, if you go to a network and say, what kind of a show do you want? They go, we want a hit show. You say, yeah, I got that part, okay? But what kind of, you know, give me an idea of what kind of thing you're looking for. And they go, we'll know it when we see it. Because the truth is, they don't know where it's going to come from. They don't know where the next great idea is going to be. It's like, look, there have been thousands of cop shows on television before CSI came along. And he said, hey, I got a new way to take a slice at a cop show, which is, guess what? It's not about the cops. They went, you're going to do a cop show that's not about the cops? Wait a minute. This sounds interesting. How does it work? And he goes, well, it's about the people who find all the tiny little pieces of evidence that you need for the cops to actually catch the bad guy. So are there cops in CSI? Yes. Are they the stars of CSI? No, the scientists and the forensics guys are the stars of CSI. So you just found another way to sort of slice the cake, okay, where you're seeing, oh, look at all the nuts and the raisins, you know, that are in here that we never bothered looking at before. Now we can look at the world of cop shows from that angle. And that was, you know, literally a brilliant, okay, innovation, but simple. He just sort of turned the cake sideways and sliced it a different way.
I mean, our collective boss, Nina Tasser, will tell you that you take an idea you know about and just go, eh. It's literally what she did to me in the room. You just go, eh. Take a cop show and go, eh. CSI. Just, eh. That was it. Above the tape cop, below the tape CSI. Little just, and that was it.
And then sprinkle in a few EPMD quotables in there.
That's
and some hip-hop quotables.
So the bottom line is, don't worry about what you think a network will want or what you think
the
we
platform
want.
would be.
You know,
don't
worry about that. Think about what you would like to see. Think about the character and the story you would like to create, because that may be something that none of us have thought of. None of the networks have thought of, and suddenly it pops up, and you have the capability and the talent here to shape it and polish it, to put it in the form that will make them, you know, receive it comfortably, so to speak. And that's how the process works. So, you know, don't limit yourself in terms of, oh, well, they'll never do that. You don't know what they'll do. We don't know what they'll do. Trust me, they don't know what they'll do on a day-to-day basis. They'll know it when they see it. So show it.
Be comfortable being uncomfortable. Usually that's when growth happens. Go ahead, Laura. You're going to say something.
I was just going to say, don't be afraid. I mean, we have a show called Through the Wormhole that started as 3-minute web clips, little tiny web, kind of like, did you know? And we talked about space, and that became something that Science Channel saw and said, let's do an hour. So we were really interested. The 3 minutes to me was really interesting. So find something that's really interesting to you. And my suggestion is have a dinner party, talk to your friends, see if you can tell them the story, see if you can tell them and get them interested. And if you can get your friends interested in something that sounds great, then you can probably put something on paper and help us get interested in it.
Great idea.
There's a really good tech incubator which is called Y Combinator. And they make you do things in teams. So you're making me think of them, because they're like, if your roommate doesn't like the idea, it might not be a good idea. So I really like the idea of like,
and it's easy to do
with other people.
Let's go to your question, please. Thanks for standing, being patient. What's your name and your question?
Ryan Stowe. And what I was wondering is, this presents a great opportunity to inspire people who may not know that engineering and science in general are really exciting ways to contribute to the world. But if they get really excited about this and then go in the classroom and are memorizing formulas, they might immediately be turned off. So what I'm curious about is there a way, some sort of path where you can turn these great ideas into a classroom experience for people, so they're seeing this on TV and then they get a chance also to do things analogous to it in the classroom?
That's phase 2.
That's phase 2, dream, right?
That would be
phase 1.
USC dream. Look, this thing was 2013. team this
Right.
idea started.
Let's
and we're
platform
just-
this a bit first. Let's do this first, and then have a little success, and then build to that phase. That's a
great
great
idea.
idea.
It's
a great
interesting
idea.
because that's Magic School Bus, which was so successful in the 90s, always had kits and things that went into the classroom to make it much more real and much less boring.
And we're working on that, you know, in the MacGyver world right now. There's a lot of interest in what they call project-based education. Okay, so we're talking with a number of designers and charter schools about, can we design MacGyver lesson plans? Okay, here's the kit, here's the stuff. Can you take these things and turn them into this thing? And what is it you're really going to have to figure out, a la Lori and the lighting board? Okay, what are you going to need to learn, in effect, to be able to turn this stuff into this thing?
Right.
Okay.
Kids are much more receptive to learning if they have, you express that too. You're like, why am I learning this? But once you can have something you're trying to do and there's a reason that this formula is relevant to something you're trying to accomplish, it's much more interesting.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been a phenomenal moment in history. I really think we'll all look back on this and see that this was that moment that really spawned a whole new interest in an area that really could use some diversity from perspectives and ethnicity and ideas. And I think this is a great time to end it, because we're going to run, what's going to happen is the internet's going to shut off our stream, and then we're going to have to get MacGyver and try to like fix it. So I'm like counting down the seconds here. But I do want to say to all of you that are watching online, please keep the tweets coming in. We're watching those. Update your posts with the hashtag #NextMacGyver. The video will be archived, I'm sure, on the NAE website as well, so you'll be able to rewatch this streaming of the panel as well and be able to figure out how you can get engaged. And I would say anyone watching, you always have a purpose to fulfill in life, and this one could be that one moment where this could be your thing that you end up fulfilling. And I think Jackie Robinson he made a great quote of the importance of one's life is the impact they can have with it. And I really commend each one of you separately for really working tenaciously on bringing, this is not easy to bring everyone together, to get everyone's schedules together, but more so to get everyone in alignment and agreement with really doing the mentorship and the hand-holding that's going to be necessary to make this successful. So can we, and all of you collectively online, give one big loud round of applause for all of our panelists and our guests. 5 seconds. One line from each of you to wrap up, and then we're going to tell everybody to go next MacGyver this thing out. Okay, we'll start with you first, Ruth. Go.
Engineers designed the world.
Excellent. Lori.
Tell us the story about them.
Love it. Anthony.
Bumper sticker. Engineering, create the future.
Bumper sticker. Love it. Lee.
If you can imagine it, you can do it.
Megan.
Have fun.
Be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Awesome.
Go create that world that never was.
Excellent.
Amen.
And with that, folks, go out, create, get online, do it right now. The next MacGyver competition is worldwide, and it's kicked off right now. Woo!